We're going live shortly. If we can avoid extra noise. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, audience. Thanks for joining us from wherever in the world you're joining us from. Hello, good morning. Sincere apologies for that glitch there. And thank you for joining us today for this live recording session. Having issues with my audio. Mr. Emmanuel, if you can mute the device from your end so that we don't have that feedback. So apologies for that, and thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I apologize. I think we are all good now. Thank you so much for joining us today for this live recording session of the TADAT podcast. I am Wofai Ibian from the TADAT Secretariat in the Fiscal Affairs Department of the International Monetary Fund. Last time in the past, we had guest speakers talk to us about taxing the rich. In that episode, they identified two main reasons why people did not pay their taxes. The first reason was that people did not know their tax obligations or did not know how to go about paying their taxes. And the second reason was that they did know, but they just didn't want to pay their taxes. Today, we speak to a subnational revenue administration, the Cross River Internal Revenue Service, CRIRS, on facilitating voluntary tax compliance through an outreach initiative. In that episode I spoke of earlier, our speakers had recommended that tax administrations or revenue administrations could implement more education and outreach programs to create awareness and educate people and businesses about their tax obligations and how to go about meeting them. So in today's discussion, that's what we'll be talking about. The Cross River Internal Revenue Service have an outreach initiative, the Cross River Tax and New Radio. So we'll take a look at what goes into producing an episode of the Tax and New Radio show. And we would also look into the impact so far on the Cross River Internal Revenue Service in terms of voluntary tax compliance. For those familiar with the TADAT framework, voluntary tax compliance is POA 3, that is Performance Outcome Area 3 of the TADAT framework. If you're joining us for the first time, more details on the TADAT framework can be found on our website, www.tadat.org. Additionally, TADAT podcasts and livecasts are a platform for knowledge sharing amongst revenue administrations with the goal of promoting international good practices in revenue administration. So I'll introduce our guest speakers today. Joining us today is the chairman of the Cross River Internal Revenue Service, Mr. Apanke Oga. Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Also joining us today is the Director of the Compliance Department of the Cross River Internal Revenue Service, Mr. Victor Oplewu. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's just me, but your audio is a little bit low, so it'd be great if it can be adjusted a little bit. Thank you. So before we delve into today's conversation, I'm sure that our audience are dying to know, what is the Tax and You radio show?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that one of the critical themes, as you have mentioned in the tax administration, is to ensure voluntary compliance. That is the only way we can grow our IGR and revenue in totality. And so the concept of sensitizing our taxpayer, educating them so that they can comply voluntarily came up eminently in 2018 through the intervention of World Bank and European Union through a program called SLOGO. That program started in September 2018. And the first stage of that program was to carry out taxpayer survey and to know their response to tax payment and gaps in terms of compliance. And we discovered that we had low level compliance because information gap between the tax authority and the taxpayer was wide. And so after that survey was conducted, the process of identifying area, because questionnaires were issued to some of our critical taxpayers, and the feedback we analyzed from those questionnaires gave us insight to what kind of challenges they have in terms of information gap. And so the Tax and You radio program was created to enable us address those gaps and then reach out to the taxpayers to enable them also comply. Because some did not have information, like you mentioned. Some had information, but would not know the process of compliance. And so compliance itself is a huge process. So we have to break it down through the Tax and You radio program. And that coverage started from February 2019, when we started the program actively outreach to our taxpayers.
Well, let me just add a bit to what Victor said. First of all, I want to say a very big thank you to the TADAT Secretariat and the IMF and the World Bank also for the support we're receiving and for inviting us for this program. We're really honored. Well, like Victor said it all, because he actually started the whole project then. When these gaps were identified, we got support from the World Bank under the support for local governance reform projects funded by the World Bank and the European Union. So a competitive process was started, and the consultant was engaged to carry out the show. And this program airs on 3 radio stations: the Crossroads Broadcasting Corporation, which is the government-owned radio station in Calabar and Ecom, and then it also runs on Hit FM, one of the oldest and biggest private radio stations here in the States. So we have an audience, or an estimated audience of over 500,000 people, not just in Nigeria, but some parts of Cameroon, and Cross River State, some parts of River State, Ebonyi, and Benue states. So the catchment area is quite, that's what I should add. It's not just in our state, people outside listen to the program, and we have a lot of, and on internet radio also, we have viewers all over. So it's quite, there's a broad, like call it broad fan base or customer base for the program.
Wow. Wow, it's amazing to learn that you have such a wide reach, even outside the country, outside Nigeria. That's interesting to learn that not just Cross River State taxpayers benefit from this initiative, but also other states. And for those who might not know, Ecom is a city in Cross River State, and Calabar is the capital of the state. So it's interesting to know that the Tax and You radio is not just limited to the Cross River State taxpayers, but also members of other states, other subnational entities, and also outside of the country. That's amazing. I think it will be great to give our audience a feel of what the Tax and You radio is. So I'm going to play just a snippet for a little bit to just hear, just to have a feel of what the Tax and You radio is. So give me a second and I'll do that.
You is brought to you by the Cross River Internal Revenue Service.
Hello and welcome to the Tax and You radio show. This is an educative platform where taxpayers are informed on their fiscal responsibilities. The Tax and You radio show brings tax matters closer to the people. This program is brought to you by the Cross River Internal Revenue Service, CRIRS. I'm your host, UK Olga. Today on the Tax and You radio show, our discussion is going to center on voluntary tax compliance and you. Yes, you. Voluntary tax compliance and you. We'll look at what that means and how it affects you and I as taxpayers.
Interesting. So that is one of the episodes. I am going to say that I was biased and chose an episode that talks about voluntary tax compliance to fit today's conversation. So going to the next question that we have, what resources do you require to create the show in terms of staffing and production and editing costs? Is the editing done in-house?
When we started, we had a grant from the World Bank and the EU under the Support Local Governments Reform Project. The project wound up in 2020, that was the COVID year. But when we looked at the impacts and the advantages of what were the feedback that we got from the public, we decided that we needed to continue the program using our own resources. So the grant money finished up and we had to cough out our own resources to make sure the program stays on air. And it's not been easy, but since 2020 to now, 3 years plus, the program is still on air. It cost us about $1,500 monthly for the program, the cost of airing it, because we air episodes on 3 stations every week. And we air different episodes pre-recorded on each of the stations, a wide variety of topics. So the cost of editing, getting the team, production, and all that, about $1,500 monthly.
Let me add to that, that part of the framework for the intervention was that we were expected to keep the sustainability of the program. The World Bank actually stressed on that we must continue, we must sustain that intervention. And I want to thank my chairman that they were able to come up with that sustainability program that is ongoing since that 2020. If we have not continued with that process, the level of average we have covered now wouldn't have been significant. So because we continue and the program, we keep updating our program based on the feedback we receive from the ones we have aired, and then we report the questions that are asked, design what we need to produce for the next episode. And so we continue in that way to expand our coverage and average voluntary compliance itself is being achieved in that process.
Thank you so much, Victor and Apanke, for that. Do you have a dedicated team leading the production of the show? And if so, how many staff members do you have in your production team?
Yes, we have a dedicated team from the service, about 4 staff. What they do is they come up with topics, then we identify speakers, things that are topical around taxation. So they identify those topics, we work with consultants, and we decide to make it not restricted to the service, although we have a lot of our staff who feature regularly, but we get tax professionals, not just but professionals from all spheres, different industries, professions, but who can talk to us on matters relating to the program. So we have a team of about 4 people handle that. Then from the Hit FM team, we have about 4 dedicated staff, UK, Duke, and the rest. UK is the lady you hear on the program who moderates the program. So about 8 members from the service and from Hit FM.
Awesome. Talking about the discussion topics, how do you prioritize the discussion topics for each episode?
Okay, let me quickly add to that what my chairman just said. What happened is that the team that we have internally, they also work with the various departments and units, because the feedback we get sometimes comes from our field officers. And so that conversation internally that we x-ray what we gather from the field, the inputs of the taxpayers, enable us to frame our topic, give it a priority. Yeah, there are certain issues that cut across, become more topical. And so we give attention to that so that we can cover a wide range of taxpayers and melt down some of the fears and lack of in-depth knowledge of what they need to do in the course of compliance.
Apologies, I was muted there. Thank you, Victor, for that. Also, I would like to know, how long does it take to create one show?
What we do is the team takes time to identify, the relevant topics, like Victor said, and identify the taxpayers. So it's a pre-recorded show. So we plan 3 months ahead of time, where possible, identify the topics, identify professionals or people who can handle those topics. And then we produce ahead of time so that we have enough episodes and material. So typically we record, it takes, we plan with the speakers and the production team. Once the speakers come, it takes, I think, 1 or 2 days max for the filming, for the recording, the editing and all that. Say about 24, 48 hours. And then, we have enough material to play the following week, as the case may be.
Thank you. Thank you, Apanke. What is your audience reach so far? Is there a way to measure your audience reach, and what is your audience reach so far? And also a follow-on question would be, do you have plans for expanding the followership of the Tax and You Radio show in the future?
Well, yes, the audience reach right now, because since we have people in Cross River states, the southern parts and the central part, Ikom area, Calabar listening, then parts of Akwa Ibom, parts of Cameroon, parts of Ebonyi. Look at the population. We estimate population about 3 million people who probably have heard of our show. If you look at the demographics in those areas, but the safer figure, when we look at the actual people, and we get some level of feedback. We estimate, say, about 500,000 active listeners. You know how it is.
Yes, that's quite impressive. That's quite impressive. So my second question was, do you have future plans for expanding the followership or listenership of the Tax and You Radio?
Yes, sustainability is key for us, very key, like what Victor said. So we're looking at the future, better topics, where possible, more radio stations and internet. If you go to our website, we're making plans to host some of these episodes on our website. So if you just click and you want to click on maybe episode 25, which was aired on the 15th of May 2023, you can click and hear it. And the Hit FM also, it's live on the internet radio. So people who can all over the world can tune in and listen to Hit FM. Tax on You on Hit FM. Yeah.
That sounds like a good plan. Do you have a system for receiving feedback from your audience for each of these episodes?
Yes, we do. We have a standard money form template which we use for the people who present, and then we're trying to test. It's been ongoing. We designed it's a simple tool which we're administering right now. It's been going online for some time, and then the physical forms which we share to specific taxpayers in specific sectors, just to track to measure the impact of what the program has done. The listening, has it been able to address issues that they are concerned? Have they been able to learn 1 or 2 new things? So it's work in progress. We're tracking.
Speaking of impact, so my next question was going to be, how do you measure impact of the Tax and You radio? I'm still related to impact. I'm sure our audience are curious to know, like, what has been the impact of the radio show? based off on the feedback you've been getting from your audience, and also what you just said, ways that you measure impact. What has been the major impact of the radio show?
Let me add to that. I want to give an example. For instance, my chairman mentioned the coverage, some other states, and even in Cameroon. You see, there's a collection we made, which is road infrastructure maintenance levy. It gave us a lot of issue when this program was not active. But through this program, we were able to sensitize road users. As you are coming into Cross River State, either from Benue State, from Ebonyi State, from Akwa Ibom, and even Cameroon, you discover that our collection points have become very seamless because they are now aware through our radio program that they are supposed to pay SY as levy. Yeah, initially it was very difficult. Sometimes it leads to fighting, but we see that collections from those points are very similar because they are aware that these kind of collections are expected to be made. Yeah, so most collections that are itinerary, you come in, you have to pay, it is mailed, and collections are very voluntary in terms of payments of those revenue. So we also have that feedback. It reflects also on the collections. You know, once we see our collection growing, we try to investigate why is this revenue head growing, particular revenue head that has been giving us problem, and you see that we are moving up the revenue. Shows that people are now getting clear education about what they have to pay in that regard.
Let me just add, we have a help desk. We got some support from Nigerian Governors Forum, set up a help desk. So the feedback, we get regular feedback daily from by emails. We have a 24-hour phone line, emails, text messages, WhatsApp, and a lot of people refer to the program. Okay, I keyed in, I listened to this on your program. I got this contact. I like to confirm this, you know, stuff like that. So we believe that the Tax and You radio show has created a lot of impact, and we're seeing it via, you know, the feedback we're getting via helplines.
That is interesting because I was going to go into the tax compliance side of the conversation. And that's interesting to know. The help desk, I think it's really, really helpful. So I'll still go ahead and ask the question anyways. Are there any lessons learned from this initiative in terms of the voluntary tax compliance? Have you learned lessons that are valuable to revenue collection or generating revenue? Also, I'm sure that members of other revenue administrations are listening right now, and I would like to learn from you. I would like to hear what are these lessons learned in terms of voluntary facilitating voluntary tax compliance.
Okay, let me say that you know, the compliance itself is internal and external. Internal in the sense that our staff who are working with us are also equipped. As we go on air to educate the paying public, we also do critical training and sensitization internally so that our staff can understand what exactly they need to do, just like the taxpayer needs to understand. And so through this process, we have grown our internal capacity, and the external taxpayers' awareness had increased, and that knowledge is there. And so the time of supervision of what our staff ought to do have been reduced because they are self-supervised because of the knowledge they have. And then in this bridge, you see that our collection has increased because of the compliance level that the taxpayers have achieved over time. And so the lesson is that regular sensitization is what we need to do because there are emerging issues coming up in the tax administration now and then. So we need to even track every new thing and see how we can sensitize the public and internally build the capacity of our staff to enable them. Because most policies that come within a short time, the policy have changed, and then will start going back again to see how you can create awareness on the new emerging team, try to see. For instance, our automation system is growing every day. And so we try as much as possible as we take steps on our automation, both collection and assessment, we pass that information to our paying public so that they will be aware, and then train our staff internally to understand our processes. So that's one of the lessons we have had over.
Okay, let me just add to that. The tax and new program, when we started in 2019, 2020, was like a stepping stone, because when taxpayers were listening to our program, from the feedback we got, we set up the tax education and tax education enlightenment teams in the state, and their work was to engage more with taxpayers, because we saw that there was a huge gap, a huge knowledge gap between what we do and, like Victor said, taxpayers not knowing that before the other certain categories, before March 31st, you're supposed to file your annual returns for direct assessment, or you're an employer of labor, you're supposed to file your annual returns for a certain period, or monthly, you're supposed to file your monthly returns, or pay and the rest. There were huge gaps. So when we started, the show was an eye-opener, the information we got. So we set up the tax education enlightenment teams. And for us, it was taking our message to the taxpayers. Right now, we engage with professional groups, business management organizations, large corporates, market associations. We go to them, we say, look, you're having a meeting in 10, 20 days. We'd like to come and talk to your people on the importance of paying taxes. And most importantly, the proper taxes you're to pay. We tell them, look, you have a right to ask what taxes you are to pay, So we started that, and we've been engaging, and we're seeing groups actually coming to us now and said, you know what, we're having a meeting of the Market Women Association on a certain day. Can you and your team, can you come over? Or the hotelers or different professional groups, they come to us and say, we'd like you to send your team over, come to talk to us about tax. What obligations we have for payee? What are capital gains? I don't know what they're talking about. What am I supposed to do? I'm a chartered surveyor, somebody in land cluster. A client sells a property, and I'm supposed to advise my client, but I don't know what to do. So please, can you come and enlighten us? So it's been great, and COVID too. It changed the way we do business. So we had to deploy world-class technology. Now you can file online. We tell every Tuesday we advertise this on the tax and you. If you're in the States, for instance, and you'd like to file, create the taxpayer ID, file your annual returns, or monthly returns, or even assessments, you can do everything online now. You're out of the country, you have a business here with staff, you want to file your payee, for example, Hit FM here, you don't need to come to the office. The accountant can simply, on his computer, upload details of his staff for their monthly taxes and all that. So it helped us, it guided us in deploying, in our automation process, and we're seeing the returns. Right now, it's for most revenue authorities, the FIRS and state authorities, automation is not negotiable. We must. See the way we must, that's the way business is being done now. It's nowhere in the way. The tax and program and, the feedback we got, it helped guide us very, very early. Without boasting, I like to say we have, in terms of technology deployment, we're well ahead of many of our peers and the other subnationals. And kudos to tax and program, because I think we started from tax and
That's great to learn. Our audience, you heard it there, that it's not just the Tax and You radio show. It's not limited to that. There are other things that the CRIRS is doing. And the things that stood out is monitoring emerging trends. I think that is really a great idea to monitor emerging trends in terms of revenue administration, and also the fact that you prioritize training of your staff, capacity developments, to ensure that they are not just talking about these things, but they fully understand what they are preaching. So I think that is great. And also like kind of giving taxpayers the assurance that you're available in different ways. You're available to answer questions. You're available to provide more information about them meeting their tax obligations. I think that is great. At this point, I'd like to check to see if there are any questions from our audience. If you're joining us and you have any questions on YouTube or on LinkedIn, please feel free to share your questions via the chat section of these platforms. YouTube, we are on YouTube at TADAT, and on LinkedIn at the TADAT Secretariat. So please feel free to send in your questions that you have for our speakers. Also, if you're watching this either live now or later on, because you can rewatch this from our YouTube channel, please feel free to still send us your questions. It's never too late to ask your questions. You can send us your questions through email by emailing us at TADAT podcast, right? podcast@tadat.org. I beg your pardon. That is podcast@tadat.org. You can also send us messages on LinkedIn. You can send direct messages on LinkedIn as well. We'll be happy to answer those questions for you. We would liaise with our speakers today to answer those questions. But it will really be great if you can ask the questions live right now. I think we don't have questions for now, so I'll proceed to the next questions. You've had all these experiences from the Tax and You Radio and all the outreach programs that you have to facilitate voluntary tax compliance. I'm sure that other revenue administrations would like to know what recommendations you have from your experience. What recommendations do you have for other revenue administrations?
Well, it's the FRS, for instance, has the FRS, they have a show, and I'm aware of other revenue authorities that also have a similar show. So it's something I recommend to other subnationals. It's good when you engage the taxpayers, you want to enlighten and educate people, because like we noted in the conversation, tax compliance is low. We listen to the figures. The tax GDP ratio of Nigeria, 8%. We just got back from the annual tax conference, and we keep hearing those figures. Very few people pay taxes, and as a revenue authority, we see a lot of issues. But the time has come. We try to evangelize, right? Tell people, look, taxes is an obligation. You want good roads, you want the healthcare, you want this, you want that. Are you paying your taxes? You don't pay your taxes. How does government do this for you? People say, I don't trust the government, corruption, I'm not getting value for tax. But we said, you've not even paid your taxes. So how do you get value? And we see places, some states have done quite well in terms of how taxes are being utilized. We see specific projects, tax for service. So there's higher compliance. When people see roads being done by the government, and it's okay, I trust my government, so I will pay my taxes. But this conversation has to start from somewhere, and it starts from when you engage with your taxpayers, you talk to them, when they listen to you, and then open, grounds for you for constant, continuous engagement. And I think programs like Tax Review have no doubt it's a start. Let's say your taxpayers hear you talking about taxation, and if they have questions, you address those questions. Conversation starts, and then there's higher compliance. My thoughts.
Very importantly, the program itself, sensitization, tried to eliminate conflict that exists between various tax jurisdictions. For instance, in Cross River State, the local governments are collecting their taxes, the state is collecting, and the federal inland revenue also collect taxes here. So this program, when you initiate program like this and you regularly keep it, you discover that those conflicts that exist between the three tiers of government in terms of collection, they are clearly separated. The taxpayer will know where to pay and what to pay. Because there are cases where we see that money due the state government is paid to federal inland revenue in error because the taxpayer is not informed. All the taxpayer knows is that I'm paying my taxes, I'm paying to whatever authority. So most of those conflicts of wrong payment and even multiplicity around our tax environment have been reduced because of sensitization. And so most tax jurisdictions that are having this problem, if they engage and increase their sensitization, you see that the environment, tax environment, has become more friendly and very harmonious. The fees the taxpayer require in the course of paying is very, very important. And so if you don't create that environment that will enable them pay and know where to pay, it becomes an issue. Some taxpayers say, I will not pay since I don't know where to pay this money to. The local government wants the money, state wants the money, and the federal wants the money. I will not pay. And so both jurisdictions are even losing revenue. Revenue are being suppressed. And then at the point, some of those revenue gets back. So if we keep the tax environment enlightened and well sensitized, you see that all parties, all stakeholders, as far as revenue generation is concerned, will have to give up their own revenue share and collection.
Thank you, Apanke and Victor, for that. We do have a question from a member of our audience. So the question says, what challenges have you found in tailoring the tax compliance program to taxpayer trends and directions? And a follow-on question is, what do you do to those who knowingly do not comply?
Okay, let me take it first. Okay. What challenges do we have? Once again, identifying topics, or
what challenges have you found in tailoring the tax compliance program to taxpayer trends and directions?
Okay, yes, it's been what we try to do is to identify the topical issues, things that are of interest. For example, in Nigeria now, the Finance Act 2023 was passed by the National Assembly, but it was not assented to by the president. There were lots of issues around stamp duties, electronic money transfer levies, the capital gains, pools and betting, So when we see these topical issues, which, are lively debates, professionals and the rest, we try to identify and source professionals, people who are well-versed around these issues, to participate on the show. It can be challenging sometimes getting people, because the tax space is so vast and complicated, especially since COVID. Now we have issues around tax digital economy, issues around significant economic presence. So when we try to pick those topics, it can be challenging sometimes getting people who can come and do justice. But we do our best and make sure we source the best we can. We have cases where you have to invite people to speak virtually and on a recorded program. Then, of course, it's the financial burden. There's a burden on us, but we regard it as an investment. I'll call it a burden. We invest heavily in the program to keep it running on the air. So getting programs, sourcing the right people, and keeping the show running can be challenging, but we thank God for getting there.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the other question was as a result of what I had said earlier, that there are two main reasons why people didn't pay their taxes. Number one was that they didn't know, and number two was that they did know, but they just didn't want to pay their taxes. So that question says, what do you do to those who knowingly do not comply?
Very interesting, that question. That somebody knows what to do and deliberately refuses to do what he or she ought to do. So in that case, we also invoke the various provisions of the law, because there are certain provisions that guide us to deal with this kind of recalcitrant taxpayers, those who want to keep government money for whatever reason. And so there are various provisions. If you cannot, we send you an obstruction letter that you are obstructing our collection of government revenue. For our procedure like that, we can even go as far as prosecuting in the revenue court so that we get our revenue, because at that level, we have seen that you are no longer at the friendly part. All you did is that you want to keep the money. And since our duty is to collect money that taxpayers they keep, we now invoke various provisions of the laws and then ensure that collections are made.
Nobody likes paying taxes.
Tell me about it.
They said, when the conference last week, somebody said, only two things are certain, like debt and taxes.
Taxes, that's true.
What we believe in this, but people may not have a good understanding of their taxes. We try to sensitize and say, look, why do you pay taxes? This is why you must pay taxes. What are the taxes you're supposed to pay? How are you supposed to pay them? Try to make it easy, to make it certain, in line with lay down policies and best practices. So our approaches, we try as much as possible to make sure that there's voluntary compliance. It's in line with the law. Then where there's we can't meet, then we have to invoke the law to make sure that legitimate revenues are collected.
It's interesting that we have so many questions coming in now, and I like that. So the next question that we have is, from your experience, what additional actions are needed to improve compliance among taxpayers, especially those who are not willing to pay? We are still on those who don't want to pay their taxes. So from your experience, what additional actions are needed to improve compliance amongst taxpayers, those who are not willing to pay?
What we do also is that some of those taxpayers, we do what we call irritation. We irritate the taxpayer to a level that the taxpayer who had been involuntary in terms of compliance will become voluntary. We do that also. And what we consider very important is that we change our level of, like, I'm the director in charge of compliance. The number of years we go for back duty and audit, we try to meet up each year so that we reduce that long period of keeping government revenue. And so if we do audits of your organization yearly, that kind of irritation, seeing us every time, we have seen people who were very stubborn, taxpayers who were stubborn, converting to compliance because they don't want to see us around them as regular as we are, and we are not there. We're always there. We can irritate you, we can do a lot of things that will make you become compliant. And so our programs are tailored that major of our taxpayers are audited in terms of tax liability within the year before 31st December. A lot of resources also is deployed to achieving that, because if you keep a long stretch of period to audit a taxpayer, you discover that you have given the taxpayer a fortune to keep money, to find it difficult to comply, because as the liability grows, the tendency to resist payment will be there. So we try to trim their liability year by year so that it becomes more convenient for you to make payment, rather than accumulating tax liability that will be on paper and then to enforce collection, the process of passing through litigation, we even spend more money and all that. So we'll try to start our work quite early and ensure that, and then make it even easier that the taxpayer will have a plan to make payments. It's not necessary that you must pay all the money en bloc. There are provisions that will allow you can make your payments, make plan, and then be paying. Such taxpayers that have resisted before can also comply, because the burden of payment now had been evil.
Okay. Apanke, do you have something to add?
I think it's said it pretty much. But for us, we, as much as possible, we try to keep engaging the taxpayers in line with the law. And then when it comes to level where, look, we have to invoke the parts of the law, we still believe in continuous education and engagement. Why do you pay your taxes? People come with different reasons, downturn in the economy. We try to, or other reasons. You have cases where people kidnapping and very sad stories we hear. But we try to say, look, it's a civic responsibility. It's not so much of what you pay, but pay something, give something back, because you're getting something from the government. So apart from, when we vote, we have to invoke the law. We keep trying to say, look, let's engage, let's educate. Yeah. Because if we have 200,000 taxpayers paying a certain amount, it's better than having 50,000 taxpayers paying a very huge amount. So we try as much as possible to bring people into the tax net in a very friendly and professional manner.
Thank you for that. I'm sure that this member of the audience has listened to a lot about what's being done to those who do not comply. So this question says, do you advertise incentives for those who are compliant?
Yes, we do. Let me give you two instances. In 2020, COVID, the federal government and state government, we got support once again from the World Bank under the SIFTA support, State Fiscal Transparency Accountability Initiative. So there was a structured tax relief program, which was approved by the government, by all the relevant organs of government. What we're trying to achieve, recognized the effect of COVID on businesses. Imagine it was a total lockdown globally. People were not traveling. So you can imagine a place like Calabar where a lot of hospitality and tourism enterprises existed. You can imagine hotels being shut down for 6 months. So we had to do abatement of certain charges, and levies, rates, and fees, which business enterprises were paying just to help them manage the effect of COVID. And like Victor talked about compliance, when back audits are done, you could have a back audit done on an entity for 3, 4, 5 years, and you have huge liabilities, maybe out of carelessness, whatever reason. So we give specific waivers on interest and penalties for those who were going to pay their outstandings for a particular period of time in 2020, I think 2021, during the COVID period, because they need to make payment and the money simply wasn't there. So we gave those abatements and reliefs to taxpayers. And then some of these reliefs, for example, hotels, there was no carnival here. Towards the end of the year, there's a lot of activity. It was a Christmas festival. So we had to abate certain taxes like tourism development levy and some other levies, ad valorem levies that hotels and tourism enterprises pay in the States, because we knew that the carnival couldn't hold because of COVID, just to make life easy. Then in 2021, that's when we actually felt the impact of COVID, because if you had a hotel in 2020 and the hotel was not functioning for 6 months, when you're declaring your income for 2020 in 2021, that's when we're actually going to see, like your personal income taxes. We'll see a bit of the actual impact of the reduction in your income. So part of this relief is also extended to 2021, just to make just make life easier for people, because we recognized the economy was in a very bad condition. Apart from that, we periodically, when we remind taxpayers of the obligations, final returns, and settle other taxes, we make extensions and we offer some type of waivers. For instance, on rental income, we did a little work asking people who are deriving incomes from commercial and other properties that have not been filing. So we gave them kind of moratorium, say, look, if you come out 5 years, you have a tenant that pays you $500,000 every month. For 5 years, we collected that money. And when you're filing your annual returns or declaring your incomes, you're not telling us, okay, we established that these incomes are being, and you're not that tax. We actually gave some kind of moratorium, saying, okay, please, you know what, come out, please declare incomes and we'll make it easy, not take out interest penalties and give you a discount. So yes, we actually do give some relief in line with the law.
Good to hear that it's not just about enforcing tax and compliance, but you also have these incentive programs. So we have a final question from a member of our audience, and it says, for the effectiveness of this outreach strategy, what type of involvement is the committee from the Revenue Administration in terms of preparation of the plan for the semester? I'm guessing that's the fiscal year, or maybe the planning for the tax and new radio. And it says also, does the involvement include live advisory? So I'll take the question again. For the effectiveness of this outreach strategy, what type of involvement is the committee from the Revenue Administration in terms of preparation of the plan for the fiscal year? I'd say fiscal year, but it's a semester. This person is a professor, obviously. Does the involvement include live advisory?
Okay, what in our introductory statement, we mentioned that we review feedbacks and then plan topics that will address what we receive in terms of gaps there. And so over this year, we've run this program for about 2 to 3 years now. So we still go through what kind of feedback we have received and what topic will evolve that address issue. Do we even bring up a topic that have addressed the issue properly? We review all those things. When we evaluate that, we now come up with a new topic that will address areas that we did not cover. It's not like all the topics or the discussion that are air would have addressed everything. Sometimes what the taxpayer will ask us, not like asking us questions, will give us insight to what we need to do, particularly when those questions are coming from different areas. And I will look at the various sectors where we collect our revenue from. We now know that, okay, this thing is a general problem. We develop that. So we track what we give out, we respond to the feedback, and then see how we can develop something that can address that area, and we keep going like that. So on a live we receive, most time we have had program where it's not directly task and you, the pre-recorded one, but we come on live program and people ask questions. We have a couple of times be on live program and then questions are asked and we address those questions.
Well, let me just add, we have several other taxpayer engagements and activities where, not just radio station, where we go out to various areas, major centers, we engage traditional rulers, and taxpayers actually come. We invite taxpayers. You know, like we had in the beginning of the year, we had a session here in Calabar. We invited a number of taxpayers, and everybody had their views. Look, people raise issues. They pay taxes, they can't get their receipts, they have problems, they need clarity on certain matters, you know. And over the period, we've been doing it not just here in Calabar, in other urban centers like Yakor, Ikom, Obudu, and Ogoja. So it's ongoing. We're still going to carry this out. And we collaborate with other agencies, so like Charter Agency of Taxation, so many other agencies here on taxpayer sensitization and engagement. So we have people that are coming live. Sometimes we work via Zoom. People from all over the country are connecting, you know, asking questions, you know, seeking clarification, bringing things to our notice, because we say, look, is this something you need to tell us, something we don't know, something where we can help you serve better? And then we try to do the monitoring and evaluation of this, so that there's proper feedback documented.
Wow, wow, wow. This has been so interesting and so educative. Any last words for our audience and other revenue administrations? Mr. Chairman, I'll start with you. Any last words?
Okay. Well, for us, we say, pay your taxes, no matter how small. Things are difficult. For the first time in Nigeria, we're seeing revenue from taxation is more than what we get from crude. The whole of last year, we see it's interesting, but so many people don't pay taxes. We are happy that there's a high level of compliance now. I'll share a little joke here. About 2 months ago, I was home. My second daughter, Elizabeth, comes and says, "Daddy, my senior sister said you should increase the taxes for one of their teachers." I had to call my daughter and say, "Oh, what's going on?" "Daddy, we don't like a teacher who teaches us a certain subject. So we want you to punish him. So all of the classmates say he should increase his tax." A 12-year-old. So 12-year-olds know about taxation. You can punish for using taxation. So it's encouraging when you see things like that. People are actually getting to know more and more about taxation, you know, and the need to pay your taxes and levies. And most importantly, to know the right taxes, when to pay, how to pay, why you need to pay. For example, you buy property from somebody and you're supposed to pay capital gains, or as the case may be. So you need to know, because someday somebody may ask you, oh, you did this and this tax was applicable on this. Why did you not pay that? You know, so for us, it's sensitizing more and more and more, talking to our people, letting people know their obligations, and encouraging people, please pay. You know, people talk nowadays, no jackmine. We know what you pay, the kind of taxes you pay out there in UK. I like it. There's power, there's infrastructure. Well, you know what you pay in taxes here, but you don't want to pay taxes here in Nigeria. You want Nigeria to be like UK. It's not possible. So please, we keep sensitizing and asking people, please, pay your taxes. If there's anything you don't understand, any clarification you need, if you need to learn how to calculate your taxes, please come. I'm sure the team, Victor and I, without charging you a fee, will guide you, because it's our work to make sure you pay those taxes so that the government gets the revenues it needs to provide those social services, which the government should be providing.
Thank you, Afanka. Thanks for that, Jack. We hope that as Elizabeth grows, she doesn't see taxation as a punishment. And for our audience, Jakba is a slogan for immigration. Victor, over to you. Any last words?
Let me say that from our experience in the past 3 years, continuous sensitization, tax education, and mutual engagement is a very key thing to promoting friendly tax environment. And the kind of issues that would have erupted to stop the collection of taxes are always addressed in the course of sensitization, that heavy campaign, and more regular, because that is the only way that taxpayers will have confidence that we are not only collecting taxes, but we also educate them. Yeah, because the education we extend to them is free. It's not something you say, okay, you are coming to a seminar, come and pay a fee to do this, and see the volume of resources we commit into it. Sometimes some of them reflect and know that, yes, this is very serious. For example, as they are key taxpayers, I communicate with at midnight, 2 a.m. And some of them will say, look, Victor, I'm going to pay this month because this hour that you text and requested that I should pay money, I don't understand. Is it that you are being paid a special amount? And they make payment. So I now understand that if you keep constant relationship with your taxpayer, they pay in public, that confidence, that mutual relationship will be there. And you see people complying voluntarily because they know that they are giving them sense of belonging. Unlike, as you mentioned, that it's not all about pay your taxes without considering the taxpayers and that. So sensitization is very key. Other tax jurisdictions should embrace it and commit resources into it, even though it's very huge in terms of resource need. Yeah.
Thank you so much, both. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Director, for joining us today and for sharing all of these insights. I'm sure that our audience also appreciates you for sharing this, sharing your experiences, the recommendations. Really appreciate this. We are so grateful for you, for your joining us today on this episode of the TADAT podcast. I would also like to appreciate those that were working behind the scene, your team, Mr. Emmanuel right there somewhere in the studio, my team, my boss, Mr. Mopa, and Jacqueline, my colleague, Jacqueline Barcelos, who is here, who has been helping us get these questions from these platforms. Thank you so much, everybody. I would also like to thank our audience. Thank you so much for joining us today, for your engagement, all the questions that you've shared. We appreciate you for joining us, and we would like to say that again, you can rewatch this episode. You can watch it on our YouTube channel at the TADAT Secretariat, and LinkedIn as well at the TADAT Secretariat. You can also send us your questions if you have any, or even comments. If you have comments or suggestions, you can send them to us by email, podcast@tadat.org. If you want more information about the TADAT Secretariat and the TADAT framework, it just occurred to me that I have been using the word TADAT without explaining to those who are joining us for the first time the full meaning of the TADAT. So TADAT stands for Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool. If you want more information about the TADAT tool, please visit our website. Yes, you see, He has the performance. Yeah, so Mr. Chairman just showed you a report that is that the field guide?
Yeah, the performance assessments.
Oh, that's the report, yes. So yeah, the Cross River State Internal Revenue Service had an assessment some time back. So that's the report Mr. Chairman just shared rather. So I was saying that you could find out more about the TADAT by visiting our website, www.tadat.org. Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you. And until next time, would like to say bye for now. Thank